Alright, so here we are, another new year, another lap around the sun as it were. However, before we get too far into 2024, first I did want to go over some of the games that I picked up during the winter sale, which is actually still going on as long as this video gets out on time, which I'm hoping it does. But yeah, today I just want to go over a few of the games that I picked up during the winter sale. In this first one, I don't inherently try to save the best for last in these lists, but I am definitely going to put what I felt was the worst pickup first, just so I can kind of get it out of the way, and that is the Metal Gear Solid Volume 1 collection. Now, here's the thing, I realize whenever I do a list like this that, just the fact that it's on the list is kind of a tacit endorsement of me saying, hey, this is, probably going to be pretty good, I've enjoyed it, obviously, or I wouldn't have picked it up, but I did actually end up returning this and got the PlayStation 5 version of the Metal Gear Solid collection. And here's the thing, it's not a complete wash, right? Metal Gear Solid 1 actually worked really well on the Steam Deck. However, 2 and 3 both had some audio issues that I just couldn't contend with, and I'm sure that if I modified the version of Proton that was in use or done a little bit of research, I might have been able to find some way to get around this, but honestly, I just wouldn't want to mess with it that much because it kind of undercut the entire reason to get a collection like this. The reason that I wanted the Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1 was so that I could have some of the biggest games that I'd played from that series just quickly accessible with, no headache to get into that experience, no fuss, no muss, just, fire it up and go. But I could not get that on the Steam Deck, so ultimately I ended up returning it. Again, Metal Gear Solid 1 works great, Metal Gear 1 and 2 both ran fine on it, but Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 did not. So if you are in the market to pick this one up and you want to get it on PC, make sure that you've got, probably just like a traditional gaming rig if you want to play it and really enjoy it, or, you can just emulate any of these games anyways. There are other, and I would argue probably better ways to experience these earlier Metal Gear entries, but yeah, long story short, Metal Gear Solid 1 worked great, Metal Gear 1 and 2 worked fine, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 were not so great. But again, to be fair, if you have another way of playing it, like an actual, traditional gaming PC that's running Windows that may not have the same issues that I ran into on the deck, it might be worth a look if you want to save yourself, I think about 20%, I think instead of $59.99 it was about $47.99, but ultimately after I returned it on Steam, I ended up ordering a physical copy of the PS5 version for I think $39.99 on sale at Amazon, so yeah, there are other ways to get it. And again, these experiences are still fun, they still tremendously hold up, but yeah, again, if your primary gaming machine is a Steam Deck right now, it's just not quite there yet, so it might be better to wait on this one. Alright, the next game that I picked up is one that I was very, very excited for, and I think I talked about it once on the channel previously, but if you're somebody who grew up in the 80s or 90s and are at all familiar with this character, you'll know why it looks so exciting, and that is Robocop Rogue City. Now, typically this goes for $49.99, but it's on sale for 30% off right now for $34.99. If you're looking for a really video game that just inherently understands the character of Robocop or what makes that character so appealing in the first place, you owe it to yourself to check out Rogue City. I was fairly certain after looking at the early footage that I was going to enjoy it, but now that I've actually played it, I absolutely love it. And no, it's not a Game of the Year contender or something like that. It's just, again, a really video game that just straightforwardly entertains and crucially, again, understands the source material of what it's trying to do. Prior to this particular Robocop game, I can only think of 2 different Robocops that I played and thoroughly enjoyed. The first would have been Robocop on the original NES way back in the late 80s, and the second one would have been Robocop vs. Terminator, which I had for the Super Nintendo, and I consistently am kicking myself for throwing away the box for that because I had that really cool kind of like plastic case that felt like it was armored or something like that. Very fun game, very cool. And I just had not really played anything with Robocop in a very long time. I'm sure there were games that I had not played, right, that still featured him as a character, but this one really does just feel like you're playing an extension of that universe, and really, most of that is due to the aesthetics, right, because, they did bring back, like, the original actors and cast to kind of, flesh out, the world of Robocop, and it just feels like a just perfectly crafted love letter to the Robocop franchise, and honestly, I wish they would do this with more properties and we see the same kind of love and care put into it. Like, no, it's not a AAA effort, right, by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say AA for sure, if that makes sense. It's clear that the people that worked on this game really had a lot of love for that source material, and that's just perfectly reflected in everything about how the game plays, right? You can definitely feel that heft and weight of each step where you just feel like a walking tank, and it is sadistically good fun to watch a bunch of random goons try to take you out with small arms fire, just to completely shrug that off, and just, blow them away with the 3-burst mode from your 9mm, or to just pick them up and throw them through the environment. I mean, it is just crazy good fun, and again, I'm expecting this is going to be about a 10 to 15 hour experience, and even that might be a little bit generous. It might be closer to like 8 to 10 hours, I guess, but ultimately, if you're in the market for a fun first-person shooter that pays perfectly loving homage to its source material, you should definitely check out Robocop Rogue City, and if you can, again, get it on discount from the sale, and you're gonna get for like $35 instead of $50. I mean, they're not even really charging like a top-tier premium price for Robocop at this point, but Yeah, so far having a great deal of fun with it. Now I will say on the Steam Deck, performance was not great. I tried to tweak a few things and kind of scale back some of those visual settings to see if I could improve performance, but it still seemed to struggle even around 30 FPS when I played it there. So the bulk of my time with Rogue City so far has been played on the gaming rig, which I actually rebuilt over Christmas back here. It looks a little bit different. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but yeah, I'll probably do a video on that at some point in the future. But yeah, long story short, if you want to play Robocop in excellent quality, maybe get it for the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox, or play it on a traditional gaming rig. Performance was not exceptional for the Steam Deck. I mean, I guess you could do it there, right? It's just not going to be the best experience you can get because they definitely put a lot of care into making sure the visuals looked very, very clean and just really popped. Next up, speaking of first-person shooters, albeit with a retro throwback aesthetic, which I love so much, as I've pointed out so many times here on the channel, is a game that was initially kind of off-putting to me only because of the universe that it exists in, because it's something I have no familiarity with, and that would be Warhammer 40k Boltgun. And again, I've just always been put off by anything that is prefaced with Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer 40k because I know nothing about that world. I have some vague understanding that it is a game about miniatures. I know there are different factions involved and that it is very much like a sci-fi fantasy type setting, I think, from what I can see. And honestly, Boltgun didn't do a whole lot to change my mind on that front. Like, once the initial characters start kind of laying out what the premise is, my eyes just kind of glazed over and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention because I just wanted to get to the action and start shooting people, and that part is exceptionally fun. And again, I'm not sure that it's really done anything to enrich my knowledge of the Warhammer 40k universe or anything so far as I've played it, but what I will say is I definitely know what a good boomer shooter is supposed to look and feel like, and Boltgun absolutely nails this. It's fast and frenetic. You can feel the heft and the weight and the movement and the stomping as you, again, try to like circle strafe around enemies or throw down a grenade or, lunge in with what apparently is a chainsaw sword of sorts, which is a lot of fun to execute. And this is exactly the sort of old school retro FPS feel that I love to jump into, right? And I know I've covered a lot of games like this on the channel, so it might not be overly surprising to see a retro FPS in this vein represented here, but honestly, considering I was able to get it on sale at 32% off, I think, for $14.95 instead of $21.95, that seemed like a good time for you to go ahead and pick it up, because again, I have no familiarity with or really extreme interest in the Warhammer universe, but I sure do love an ultra-violent 5th-gen looking FPS of sorts, and that is exactly what Boltgun provides. And predictably, because of those artistically chosen sort of lower tier graphics that are on display that, again, look like they came straight off of the PlayStation or a mid-90s PC, the performance on this one is absolutely rock solid across the board, runs perfectly fine on the Steam Deck, 60 FPS without breaking a sweat, and all of it just looks tremendously fun. It is bloody, it is gory, it is just high-octane action, so if you are interested in that and you like that old-school level design where you're looking for secrets or key cards or just trying to figure out the way to progress through the level while avoiding tons and tons of incoming enemy fire, I think you will probably find something you love in Boltgun, and odds are good if you're already a Warhammer fan, you probably already picked this one up. Next up is a game that I kept hearing rumblings about over and over, and honestly, I picked it up during the winter sale, but it was not on sale. However, it is only $9.99, and if you have a lot of friends that you regularly want to play kooky, weird survival horror stuff with, you should definitely check out Lethal Company. Now, this came out in October for early access, and again, is a co-op survival horror sort of Trinket scrounger. The basic setup is that you work for a company, and there are 4 of you that are exploring random moons that you get shuttled off to, and in your time on those moons, you have to explore these dilapidated structures and retrieve scrap that then goes back to the company. Each day, you'll be tasked with a specific profit quota that you need to fulfill. Actually, I think you can get like 2 or 3 days to actually fill that so you can hop around a little bit, but retrieving the scrap that the company wants requires you to delve deeper and deeper into these different structures, and ultimately avoid a variety of hazards along the way. Even just getting to the place that you're supposed to explore once you touch down on whatever moon you've chosen to go to with your friends might have its own challenges on the way to that structure. For example, you might encounter like a hive of bees, and at least in one game that I was playing, I accidentally had a friend bring all of them back into the ship that we landed on, and it killed all of us very quickly. And the gameplay loop is pretty straightforward. You explore, you procure scrap, you survive, and you escape over and over again. But the meat of the experience is really seasoned by things like proximity chat and the random nature of each scrapping attempt, because all sorts of dangers lurk around every corner. Sometimes there are terrifying monsters, sometimes you just won't have a very safe moon to explore and you'll get stuck on some super foggy planet where you just can't see more than 5 feet in front of you, or maybe it's going to be raining, or have something else that's just going to impede your progress of locating where that scrap is and what might be lurking in the darkness ready to take you out at any minute. And the reason that I mention proximity chat specifically is because that probably is one of the most interesting aspects of the gameplay. So with 4 of you, one person can stay back on the ship and sort of monitor progress remotely and stay in contact over walkie-talkies, assuming you purchase some walkie-talkies from the company. Or you can just choose to move in a group, and as long as you're relatively close to each other, then you can hear each other. But the problem with staying grouped up is if some, incredibly terrifying monster just pops out of some random hallway that you're exploring, then it might instantly take out all of you, and then it's sort of game over. It's a lot of fun, and it almost feels like the developer took the ideas from Phasmophobia and Sea of Thieves and just sort of smashed them together in a sci-fi sort of setting with what might appear to be like some fairly crude graphics, I guess, but again, this is the kind of aesthetic that I personally really enjoy. But yeah, if you have a few friends, you owe it to yourself to check this one out, because it is great fun if you just like the idea of being in some incredibly creepy environments and just sort of completing menial tasks, again, with some buds and kind of creating your own hilarious moments, again, a la Sea of Thieves. Now, generally when it comes to multiplayer games like this or Baldur's Gate, I don't really play them on the Steam Deck that much. I usually like to play on a gaming rig, so that's the bulk of where I've been playing this so far. But I have seen videos online where it looks like this does play pretty well on the Steam Deck. I just haven't had a chance to test this myself yet, but yeah. So far I would say it's a pretty safe bet, and for $9.99 I've definitely spent, $9.99 on way worse games than Lethal Company, so yeah, if that sounds like it would be up your alley, definitely worth exploring, and again, the reviews are just overwhelmingly positive for it right now on the store. And finally, the last game that I picked up is another retro throwback, and one that I wasn't willing to pay $24.99 for, but when I saw it was 90% off and I could get it for $2.50, I was definitely willing to roll the dice, and even if you didn't want to spend that, there is a demo available for this, but that would be Narita Boy. Now, this had popped up over and over on my recommended, but I passed on it because as much as I love pixel art graphics, there's just no shortage of games with that art style, and I've read a lot of mixed things about Narita Boy. But again, when I saw it was 90% off, I figured I'd go ahead and take the lead. And Narita Boy sort of feels like a ton of different games smashed together, and it certainly wears its Tron influences on its sleeve. The basic premise is that you appear to be a piece of code inside of a computer who has to traverse the digital kingdom with your trusty techno sword to prevent some corrupted code from destroying the new world. And so far I'd say it's alright, like I appreciate the retro visuals, pixel art, and animation, but I just haven't played enough to really know if the action part of this action adventure is going to gel together very well. It sounds and looks excellent, and there's definitely a Metroidvania component here. I'm just not sure how well it will nail those aspects of the gameplay loop. Combat's straightforward, and over time you'll unlock some new abilities to play around with, but yeah, long story short, I'm just gonna have to spend more time with this one. Like, the combat feels okay so far, but not necessarily exceptional to me, but again, I am still pretty early within like the first half hour or hour of the game, so I probably just need to spend some more time with it, but yeah, ultimately, visually, from like a nostalgia standpoint, I absolutely love everything Narita Boy has on display here, but even this early on, I'm still pretty sure that I wouldn't have paid $25 for it. So far, I would say it's pretty interesting for what it is, but definitely glad I paid $2.50 to check this out rather than $25, and again, if you're thinking about this one, maybe check out the demo first and see if it really resonates with you. And given its simpler presentation, at least from a technical perspective, it runs perfectly fine on the Steam Deck, and you should have no problems there. Alright, and that's it for this one. Hopefully I was able to show you a few new games that maybe you missed out on during the winter sale, and if this goes up in time, hopefully you can grab one if you are interested in picking up something like Robocop Rogue City, which is probably my favorite out of everything that I highlighted here today. But hey, what about you? Did you already grab something during the winter sale? If so, please let me know in the comments below what that was, because I'm always looking for new suggestions here on the channel. And stay tuned for the next video, which should be out in a few days. I think that's going to be like a channel update, kind of talking about what we're going to be doing here in 2024. So, as always, thank you so much for your time. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.